starting with the division of these main focus areas, starting with food systems, smart cities, waste management, and eco-innovation. And these focus areas cluster the 14 projects that actually the community has. And all of them try to communicate around the key priorities of the EU REVOLE and the EU Circular Economy Action Plan. So this has been built over the past 4 years. So in 2016, this community started working on these different projects, and now we are part of the capitalization and transferring phase. So this is what brings us here today. We decided to host this communication training as well for our projects, that now some of them are coming to an end at the end of this month. And we want to give them we want to all give you the tools to actually realize about so many opportunities to use these results and findings to transfer and capitalize these results. So, just as another example, we have developed this little graphic around the quadruple helix, which includes our main stakeholders, so being civil society, public authorities, academia, and industry and business. So we are building our messaging around considering these different stakeholders. And lastly, I just want to mention that this community has been labeled by the Union for the Mediterranean at the end of 2019, and at the end of last year in 2020 we were selected to be part of the coordination group of the European Circular Economy stakeholder platforms, which also allow us to connect with many more actors and networks in this circular economy sector. So we are very happy about that and making all the efforts to move towards these goals. So let's start from the beginning. If we want to communicate about the circular economy, we will need to understand what the concept of circular economy is. And there's some lack of consensus around that. And I think the concept of circular economy has gained significant momentum over the past few years, especially within the business community. But this is still kind of a work in progress in defining what circular actually means in practice. There's some companies that they just began their circular journeys. There's others that they've been working in this area for longer, especially on this kind of research and innovation projects. But I think we are all kind of now exploring how we can actually best communicate around that. And it seems like in our world, potentially most of the people that we are here, we are already convinced about the potential and opportunities, but we cannot really measure and monitor its progress just yet. As I wrote here, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development has developed in 2020 the Circular Transition Indicators. So it allows companies to measure their circular performance and associated risks and opportunities, which I think it's very important to really find a common language, which is what we are kind of lacking right now, since there's a lot of terminology that tries to bring under the same umbrella the concept of circular economy. So I wrote here a definition that I thought that it was very insightful from Metabolic. Metabolic is a think tank that it's working since 2011 in the circular economy and sustainable kind of research and thinking, systems thinking. So I think it's very interesting to see it as a systemic approach to economic development designed to benefit business, society, and the environment. So it's a kind of a contrast from the take, make, waste linear model into an economy that is regenerative by design. So the idea is that we start, reusing all the materials that we use. And here I actually included a nice infographics that they developed, Metabolic as well, around the 7 pillars of the circular economy. So we can always refer back to them. And there's an important reflection that also they explore, which is always start by making yourself questions. And I think this is very important, and we will see it across the training today. So if we want to talk about what the circular economy is, we need to imagine and visualize how it's a world that it's totally circular, or at least a high percentage of it circular. And this is the question that I wrote here, that I think it's very important for us to start visualizing and imagining more. This is the only way that we will be able to express it in a more natural, organic way. And of course, following as well the research from the World Business Council to actually measure those circular performances. Just as the Sustainable Development Goals were good to display all the targets at the beginning, we realized that it was very important to define the indicators to be able to communicate better around them. Otherwise, it gets a bit generic and we get lost in translation, let's say, no? And I would like to just mention a key fact here, that it seems that now we are moving towards this circular economy, but nowadays, today, there's only a 9% of the global economy circular. So there's a lot of room for improvement and opportunities to discover. So I think it's a good moment to keep going in this transition, let's say. And this is an interesting fact that it's been published by the Circularity Gap report, which I also think that it's a good reference to read more about the circular economy. There's some leading organizations that are helping us to also get our heads around how do we, make sense of all these different trends and initiatives and business models that are appearing. So let's jump into the other side of our training today, which obviously talks about storytelling. And obviously we understand a little bit about the concept of the circular economy, and now it's just a matter of how do we communicate about it. And I would suggest that we do it through the medium of the narrative. I think we do a lot of work in terms of like analyzing data, taking statistics, but now we need to do a strong effort to translate or accompany those data, those statistics into more compelling narratives. I think storytelling is a very effective model for communication that it has been used by, since the beginning of humankind. We've been telling stories, and this is what shaped our world. And of course, brands made sense of it a long time ago as well, and they've been using storytelling for a long time as well over the years. And we can see that they managed to make those connections and build relationships with their customer groups. So I think it works. We just need to know how to do it. Because as the title says, we heard many times, like, want to do a compelling story? Come on, craft a narrative, tell us what happened. But it's not so straightforward. I think, of course, it's a great advice and something that we need to take into account. But in a practical level, it's like telling someone that just be funny. No, it's difficult to actually make a laugh if you don't, practice or have the skills really to and the confidence, especially, to do so. So what I want to say with this is that there is an art and science behind the storytelling, and there are some methodologies and there are some tools that it can get us started. And once again, as Metabolic said, I think we need to start by making ourselves questions every time that we want to do a story. Okay, so let's ask ourselves some questions. Here, I want to present the Golden Circle, which is a model that I don't know if you are familiar with. But this is something that I discovered through the work of Simon Sinek, first of all, through a TED Talk, which I found very interesting, and then through the book, Start with the Why. And I think this is very simple, but very important when we are trying to create a compelling story. As I wrote here, if we communicate from the outside in, we can share vast amounts of information, but it doesn't drive decision making. However, if you start from the why, asking yourself the purpose, the reasons why, the motivations behind why you are communicating, I'm sure that it will come up from the heart and it will make more sense for you and more natural to really talk about something. So usually we focus on the what I'm doing, what the product is, what the service is, but if we focus on the why, maybe we kind of transform our approach to the way that we build these stories. So now what I want is to bring you to an exercise, so I'm not talking all on my own, and you can also do some thinking around the why of you telling a story. So imagine that you want to tell a story, and I'm sure that you won't, otherwise you won't be here. I'm sure that you want to communicate about something, but before thinking about the what, it will be good to think about why you want to tell a story. Is it to share information? Is it to inspire? Is it to teach? Is it to learn, to connect, to make things stick to something? So my colleague Marta, I think she's gonna share a link in the chat in which you can directly go to Jamboard, which is a collaborative platform from Google, in which you can all write some of the ideas that come to mind when you think about the why you want to communicate, or why you're thinking of this story. And I think it will be a good way for us to think a little bit for 2-3 minutes, and then to see what others are actually thinking about as well from the sector. Let me know if you have any troubles with it. But the general purpose of this is to think about the purpose of your communication. It needs to make a point, otherwise there's no point to communicate about it. For those who just joined, I'm seeing more people joining. We just shared a link to the Jamboard to think about why you tell a story. So think about a potential story and about the reason or the purpose of it. So you can start with the practice directly. Okay, I hope that you all had a bit of time to brainstorm around the why. You don't need to spend much time because we want to continue and be able to get some notes down there. So let's continue in this Jamboard with the how I'm going to tell this story, okay? And identify in which way your story will drive the message to your audience. But hold on, have you identified your audience yet? Did you already think about your audience? Because this is something very important that sometimes we forget to do before writing a story. And I don't mean audience in general terms. The goal is to reach an individual person. Imagine an individual person that is standing in front of you and is hearing or listening or reading your story. Okay, this is what we call our target audience. And you will be for sure a bit more focused on the way you are addressing your message, okay? because there's no such thing of general public in communications. We need to define in a greater detail who's the person that is behind your story, let's say, no? So I think this goes in parallel. In order to think about the how you're going to communicate about it, you need to think first about the audience itself. So imagine you can draw, you can find a photo online of a potential persona that is reading your story or listening to it. And then, or you can just write the profile of this person. So you can go a little bit into more detail and the how. You can imagine their age, the gender, the interest, the education level, the country. You can go for many details. So try to don't imagine a crowd of faceless people, but actually put a face to it. For the how, obviously it's important that you consider where is this person going to find your information. Where is this person usually? It's in social media, on websites, it's on other sort of platforms. Think about the channels they use and the groups or platforms that they are, where they are, and interact with others, because you will need to be there. Okay, so if you find trouble adding sticky notes to this same whiteboard, you can actually click and use another one. So feel free to start, or Marta, maybe you can help with that, opening a new whiteboard, and people can do the same. We can replicate this page if too many people is in the same one.
Yeah, I was trying to make a new Jamboard in case, so I share with you a new link, and in case it's a problem that there is too much people in that same document. So
yeah, I guess, yeah, you can create more slides so you can keep going. I guess there won't be any problem. If you cannot make it on the Jamboard, which I'm sure that Marta can provide another link and you can try with a new one, and we can have two with two different groups. Otherwise, try to do the exercise, of course, on a paper, and try to think about these different layers of the skeleton of a story. Now I would like to introduce, obviously, if you were able to choose your audience, to establish the why, the how, now it's your time to think about the what you want to talk about. It will be much easier to find the topic if you do it this way. So again, you can ask yourself questions on, okay, so what's that I want the listener to feel or think, so I can have a more concrete topic. What's the desired result? And I hope that the best answer that you can give to this question is not inform them about Q2 activities, because that's not really a what or how. You will need to go back to the first step and go back to something like a bit more concrete. Okay, perfect. So for those who just joined, there's a link that Marta just shared in the chat with a new link to Jamboard, in which you can start thinking about the why, why, how, and what of your story, including an identification of your target audience, the persona. Okay, so I think you had around 7 minutes to explore these main questions. I think it's a good exercise to focus a little bit more into the power of storytelling. And I want to give you some more input into the target audience, because I think this is one of the most important parts before we start even our communication strategy, for example. No, I think doing a target audience analysis and mapping, it's something that mainly for EU-funded projects is compulsory, of course, but also for our own goals as well, for our communication goals, it's very important. So the most important piece of storytelling is to remember that there's no one size fits all story. It will depend on the people that you are communicating to, that you will need to write or think about a piece, a very different narrative. Then tell the story in a way that is relevant to them, not to you. That's important. We have some difficulties to also put ourselves in the role of another person or the profile, and learn about your audience preferences and motivations. It can be something that you can write also there in the Jamboard, but I think it's important too, as I mentioned, to think about these different areas, and it will make much easier to know what messages to use. So let's continue with key messages. I think if we manage to respond to these questions, we will realize that now we need to give a structure to our story. And usually stories have a beginning, a middle, and end. Okay, so we can think about the 3-act structure. This little graphic that I displayed here, it's something that is being used in books, films, and all sorts of stories to actually have a consistency, a guideline, a story flow that will allow us to think first about the Act 1, in which you set the scene, you explain the context, you have a beginning, so you know where you are coming from. It can be from a past circumstance, or you can start with the present, but you need to start with something, and that's going to be your beginning. You start about you explain the context and the thoughts around that, and of course you delve into the why. So when you keep walking through this 3-act structure and you arrive to the Act 2, to the midpoint, there's a kind of purpose to it, no? It's where you actually share why you are writing this story. There's some challenges, there's some twists that we need to confront people with, okay? People like to have different characters, like to have different views, they like to have the kind of, main purpose of what you are communicating about. So that doesn't mean what your product or service does, it's more about the reason why you are actually telling this story, because you are creating some kind of emotion there. In which people can reflect about, okay, this is a stake, okay, I didn't realize about that, but now I'm seeing it. And then you can then delve into the climax of Act 2, in which you kind of represent your solutions or your, your statement around something that might be related to your company or product, but without making it very focused on that, but actually as a kind of outcome of the midpoint or the big twist that you are trying to communicate about, okay? And then when it goes towards the climax of Act 3, Act 3 is the resolution. It's when you actually display about you talk about the solutions, but more in the kind of call to action level. So you wanna have some kind of outcome out of that, a desired result. You want your audience to do something. It can be to read another article, but it can also be to buy something that you've been trying to explain the reasons and the benefits of that. So you want to have an ending. And usually we like happy endings in terms of like an optimist and positive vibe to be able to feel that we can do things. But it can also be a wrap up that actually sums up what you kind of wanted to state. No? So it's a nice way of, setting the scene, maybe challenging the reader to understand something new, to grasp new concepts, and come up with some solutions or benefits about that, and then the wrap up. So I think this is very useful to divide your stories around these three main acts and think about this. And I think if your story has a clear purpose, as we start to discover with the why, how, and what, it has a structure, and it has an accompanying visuals, like the imagery I put here, I think you are more likely to make a powerful impact. You already have three important ingredients that all of the stories that they have succeed around the world they are using. Okay, and something that I think it's very interesting as well is to structure your thoughts around three main messages or three key takeaways. I think sometimes we try to cram a lot of information in one place, and we feel that there's too many information to digest. So less is more, and I think if we are able to communicate around three main messages, I think we will be able to reach the desired result. Okay, so that gives you a very simple choice. You can either decide about the three main topics before you start building your story, so you can build your story around those, or the other way around. You can follow the questions that we did, you can kind of design the three arc structure, and then think what will be the key messages that I want to integrate within this. And then you have it a little bit more shaped. Okay, so I would like you to go back to the Jamboard and to keep going with that kind of a story flow. If you can write three key messages, it can be three words that you put in each key sentence. In fact, usually when we go in for taglines, something that accompanies your logo or your claim, I think it's interesting to go for something short to the point. So we're seeing it with, for example, the Commission with the tagline that merged with Build Back Better, or we are seeing it with some companies with Build to Last, or something similar. This is for a tagline specifically, but I think we can go for powerful, short key messages that really entitle what we want to communicate about. So do this exercise for another 2 minutes, and then we go into the next slide. Okay, let's continue with the next step. You can always go back and think about your key messages, but I think it's important to go from this kind of very clear structure to a journey, let's say. So the next step will be to actually develop the flow of that story, okay? And there's some methodologies to do so as well. I'm putting here a graphic that represents the hero's journey, the monomyth, that maybe some of you also heard before about. This is also a common story structure shared by cultures around the world, in which a character, which is the protagonist that you can see there, starts a journey. it gets himself into the unknown territory, so something that doesn't know about, but somehow he feels the need to explore something something new. So embarks on a new adventure, which is what we call the call to adventure. And most of the films or books actually have this kind of common story structure. I think it helps a lot to, to take us through a journey, as we say. Okay, so the first step is to make the hero the priority, and the hero is not you. Okay, the hero, once again, is that persona that you imagine at the beginning, and it can be a farmer, and you kind of immerse yourself into the farmer character, or it can be a policymaker. Actually, you are thinking from as you were him. Okay, and you need to find something else that makes you take action somehow. So this will be the first step into this journey, in which, of course, you're going to find allies. You're going to find a mentor that inspires you. The mentor can be any form of life form, in the sense of someone or some people, a collection of items also that inspire you and takes you to the next level, and helps you to get through the challenges and temptations of, staying in your status quo. There will be a moment, of course, in the story in which, as we said before, there's a revelation. There's something that I didn't think about before, but somehow by watching this or reading this, something clicked on my mind. So this is where the emotion come in. Okay, and that's why here in my second point I put make it personal, because personal stories resonate to your emotional brain, and get your audience emotionally invested in the outcome of that. Okay, so you feel that as they are doing it. So somehow during this journey, there's a transformation. Maybe it takes a few hero's journeys, sometimes, to really realize about that whole transformation, and you are ready to go back to your origin, to the return point of, but transform. Somehow something has clicked, and you manage to change behaviors, which is sometimes our final outcome, no? To change perceptions and to change behaviors and to really move from one place to the other. So keep that in mind. This is something that you can find many references online, the hero's journey. This was referred to by Joseph Campbell a long time ago, and I think it's still a key point to refer to for this kind of story development. Of course, depending on the level in which you're gonna get, you can define it very, very good. So here you can also go back to the Jamboard and briefly say what is at stake. Okay, I think this is very important. If we realize about what it is that we want to transform, what it is that we want to get our audience to feel after reading our story, we want something, something that can be the climate, or it can be something very concrete that you feel. That's why you started your organization or your business. But something is at stake, and we need to make it clear. And I think by writing or drawing things down, there's some clarity towards that. So feel free to write it there. In the next slide, there's what is at stake. Now, I want to give you an example of what we've done in the Green Growth community over the past year. In our communication strategy, we thought that it will be good to think about some common themes that we wanted to talk about as stories, and obviously displayed in our website and in REVOLE channels. So you can actually read the story in both our websites and REVOLE. We can share the link later, but we try to follow that kind of a structure, obviously thinking that our audience it's quite specialized in these topics and they are already convinced, let's say, but we want to make a specific claim about the waste management, let's say, no? So what we try to do is to be consistent with the narrative that we were using in other articles, of course, and be persuasive. So at the beginning, we try to go for the kind of putting the context, setting the scene, the beginning of the story. I think it proved in the stats that every time that we try to do this kind of context situation, for those who are not that familiar with the circular economy, we don't need to include circular economy everywhere. We can actually talk about residues, we can talk about the repair, reuse, the 7 R's that make it easier for other people to connect with. Okay, and I think some of the keywords that we've seen over the past months and even years is the kind of zero waste movement is the one that it's resonating the most through kind of groups that are kind of user generated content, which is very good, that people is sharing knowledge, is sharing practices that are related to zero waste, and it's amazing that we can kind of allow through communication to do that. Well, this is an example with some of the key elements that we explained before. So real life examples. We took obviously some of the projects of the community to make that connection, but we wanted to demonstrate the practical application of the elements of the circular economy with clear examples that are working now. So while some audiences could understand or are more familiar with this, there are some that no, and it might be something to highlight, no, the severity of the global waste problem to deliver a powerful message. So what we do as well is to try to explore stories of collaboration, of co-creation, of co-development. If we are always trying to create that kind of collaboration movement, then we need to connect the dots, let's say, no? For people to understand that this is not only possible by one sector, but actually a collaboration of the different ones that enable this circularity to happen. And this is what we also try to, one of the key takeaways, it was that even with quotes from the project managers, sometimes with some kind of report that accompanies that supports that, I think it's important to make that claim of collaboration and co-creation between different sectors. And try to be more persuasive with the claims that we make. No, I think, for example, something that we're noticing is that it's more powerful to say transform that transition towards something, because there's a great difference between what we are communicating about. That if there's a transition, there's a constant improvement to get there, but if there's a transformation, it might be a more systemic move that we are making now. No, so let's talk more about the present and the claims to make it more like persuasive. I think this is something that brands have been doing well a lot of time, and NGOs and our sectors more in the kind of research and academia as well. We need to make more kind of, we need to be more confident about what we are communicating about. And of course, make the educational claim as well, no? At the end of the day, what we want to do sometimes with our projects is to inform, to raise awareness about something. Sometimes there's not even a clear goal of selling something. So yeah, we need to prove that the circular economy involves a new role for consumers as well, that it's not about buying, make waste all the time. No, it's about actually making the effort of repairing or returning or rebuying, retain, resell. So it's about the all the time that we need to put the focus on. Of course, the statistics, as I mentioned, in our stories, we always include some facts, of course, that are supported by evidence-based knowledge, but it's part of the story. We don't want to make only facts or stats, because there's no kind of that kind of emotional connection is not there. And finally, as I mentioned, try to end the story with a call to action. So you kind of leave the audience or the viewer with that kind of desire to discover more or to do something after that. Okay, it's what we could it's the circularity of what we do. On the other side, for the green growth community as well. What we are doing when we talk to policymakers, which is a very different communication sometimes, because some policymakers also read REVOLE magazine, and they are also very engaged with this kind of stories. Sometimes if we really want to influence some policies, we need to come up with a catalog of project overviews and results. And at the end of the day, making this design attractive design and the use of visuals and as you can see here, very structured and accessible way of presenting the project overview enable us to to do it more automated at the end of the day. Okay, so we have a structure that we follow, that we collect, that we digest, we edit, and we make sure that the narrative corresponds to the right audiences. So as I wrote here, every data is not relevant, so you need to filter the information because describing bureaucracy isn't communication. Sometimes we feel that the longer it is and the more we communicate, the better, but it's not. Sometimes we need to wait for the right moment to communicate about something, and that means planning beforehand. Okay, so this might take us, longer than expected because we want to create something that is coherent and consistent across the 14 projects, and that makes the whole process more bold, let's say, the compilation of all the project's results. And this is something that we are now finalizing. It will all the fact sheets are displayed in our website, but the results findings will be ready in the coming months, since all the projects are now coming to the end. So I think it's a very nice resource to disseminate the results, and of course capitalize and transfer them. Okay. I think if we have a lot of data and statistics, I think it's important to include some of them, or at least one killer, as I say here, like killer statistic in the press release, which is like, whoa, and then get the people to go to your website and explore more. But don't try to put it on in the same document, because once again, as I mentioned, it will be too much to digest. So if you do a press release that has one key point to make the claim towards, it's perfect. And then you can, put a nice fact sheets accompanying that, or in the website, a nice visual as well, element that can be more attractive. And don't assume that people understand your language. Sometimes we go for abbreviations from your project that no one understands, and it's a bit pointless to do such a a document with some information that only you understand. So once again, it's all about trying to give that coherency to what we do. So we have both sides of the work. Sometimes we have to go for the more descriptive materials, and sometimes we try to go for the more narrative. This year, we really want to focus on the more kind of human dimension, with interviews, with more like collaborations between sectors, not only about us, but also about how can we make this bigger by working together. So reinforcing that angle. I think it worked well when we did a podcast as well, and some elements that were different to what we were used. And well, coming now to the end slide, obviously I said so during the presentation, but getting visual is very important. And we saw that as well with the videos that we've been producing this year, short videos. It doesn't need to be more than 1 minute or two, but actually that takes you to the key messages, to the 3 main takeaways that you want your people to connect with. And as you see in this graphic, 90% of the information transmitted to the brain is visual. We use our sight to connect to things. So I think it's all about connecting with our primary senses, and make things as accessible as possible, no? And as you can see, visuals are processed faster, and now we live with this kind of attention spam, and with social media, with 1 million news per hour. I think it's important to go for the kind of more accessible, faster way of communication as well. So I think at the end of the day, the good thing of the exercises that we did today is that even if you were writing them, that essence, that basis, can help you to put it in any format. I mean, if you are used to write articles, as we've been doing in REVOLE, writing articles for the past 10 years, and now moving more towards motion graphics, video, other elements, is because we can transform them. At the end of the day, if you have the basics and you included everything that needs to be there, then you can transform it in every other format, let's say, and then decide which channel will be the most appropriate for your audience. Okay, and once again, as we said earlier, I think we need to go for those aptitudes that influence decision making and drive consumer behavior change, because I think this is one of our main priorities here, with this transformation to the circular economy. So now, as a last exercise, I would like you to think about what pieces of information could you show rather than tell. Okay, that's something that you can write in the Jamboard. And as I said, for us it's very important. That's something that we see that has a lot of engagement using icons, symbols, color coding, graphic elements, images, videos. A strong brand identity behind what you write, it's important. So I think many times we said so, but still there's a lot to do. And yeah, if you can write some of these elements that you would like to prefer, you would like to see visually instead of written. Okay, so I hope you had the chance to write some of these elements that you would like to transform into visual materials. And just some practical tools that we used for the Green Growth community that I think it's good to share. It's Canva. I don't know if you are familiar with that, but it's very intuitive and user-friendly. It's a free platform in which you can use a lot of the elements and tools that they have. It's collaborative, so you can use it with your project partners to create shareables for social media, videos. So it's very complete in that sense. And you don't need to be a graphic designer to go and try something. No, we can all be a bit more creative than we think we are. And I think with that you can get very organized because you can create, plan and share in one place. So I really recommend it because we see that there's a lot of value to this constant flow of information on social media to create that visual element that can help us to get through. And then another platform that we use, especially for event campaigns, is Trello. I think it's being used all across at least European campaigns that I've seen recently as well, because it's very intuitive, it's collaborative and flexible to transform things around depending on your needs and your campaign. So you can create, organize all the templates that you created, the cards, list boards. So I think I will also recommend this one, and especially because both of them you can easily share a link and that's it, no? And we have them all published on our website in the capitalization platform that we can also share the link so you can explore a bit more later on. But we have published the visual guidelines so everyone knows how to use the materials that we created, communication kit, including everything that we have created to date, and Trello, which it's as well another way easily to share our resources, or at least to read them through in one place or concentrated. So if you want to share any particular platforms or tools that you used over the past years or months that has proved to be useful or creative, please do so, and in a new slide in the Jamboard, so we can all knowledge share. And that's all from the training that I have planned for today. I hope that you learned something and you have some basics for your next story. Of course, if you have any questions or you already have some inspiration for your next story and you want to share it with us based on what we have developed, if you want to enlighten us, that would be fantastic, so we can see real examples of something that could come up. Yeah, just feel free to kind of explain a little bit about your organization and what are the elements that you will consider for a story, or maybe talk about the communication that you are doing recently that maybe it's interesting to keep in mind as well. That will be fantastic if someone wants to do it. I open the floor before I give the floor to my colleague Silvia Brandi, who's going to talk about some stories from the media perspective, from Atlas of the Future. It will take around 15 minutes for her to kind of present how they see it and their guidelines. But feel free to comment before we jump into the next presentation. Okay, so before you go, I think it's important that we also hear from a journalist perspective what is important to keep in mind when building your stories, more on the dissemination side of things. I think it's going to be a good source as well for you to get inspired, and of course try to place your stories in other media outlets and platforms. Sylvia, I don't know if you are around.
Hey, I'm here.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Thank you. Actually, thank you for the presentation. Patricia was extremely informative and clear. So I realized that many things that we are doing kind of, I don't say automatically, but in an unconscious way, you really managed to clear up all the process. So it was really interesting also from my side. So, as Patricia, well, thank you for inviting me. As Patricia said, I'm gonna share the point of view of our media, and I'm gonna share my screen. I'm just one thing. I'm experimenting a bit of connection problems, so also I shared my presentation with Patricia in case I will not be able to share it myself because of connection problems. So I would connect from the phone. Anyway, let's see if it goes. So I'm gonna share. So sorry, host disabled attendee screen sharing. So you should allow me to.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe
share the screen. Okay. Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. You are seeing my screen, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Don't be scared of the amount of tabs I have open because I have a plugin to freeze them while I'm not using them. So I can have always everything displayed. Very interesting. All right, there, presentar. Okay, so I'm gonna quickly talk about this media, Atlas of the Future. So I'm gonna share our a bit where I'm speaking from, now for you to understand why we need certain project in a certain, why we highlight certain project in a certain way. And then I will enter a bit more in detail about our editorial guidelines, so as to see the other point of view, now from the publisher point of view. Actually, my role is the publisher. So Atlas of the Future, Daily Adventures in a Better Tomorrow. Atlas of the Future is a multi-platform media, which means that it's a media that is based in London and Barcelona, and aims to increase the optimism about the future by sharing the most inspiring projects for a better future from all over the world in all areas of activities. So it's a kind of map of all the optimism in the world, or all the reason to be optimistic. What inspires us is this quote by Noam Chomsky, that says that optimism is a strategy for making a better future, because unless you believe that the future can be better, it's unlikely you will step up and take the responsibility for making so. So this is very interesting for us, because kind of puts the communication into the realm of the activism. No? If you inspire people through communication to a compelling storytelling and inspiring content, you can actually have an impact, like through a cascade effect. No? Because if people believe that a future can be better, they will step up, or it's more likely that they will step up and making build so. And about the multi-platform aspect of our platform, we mention it because around a community of formed by, we will see it a bit more in detail, of both project leaders and people interested in making this future better, we are developing a series of different formats, which we'll see also in detail, which are a web page, an event, a magazine, and for the next year, a documentary. Let's go in detail about the web page, the online platform of stories and projects. It's called atlasofthefuture.org, and is an online platform that every day shows or highlights a story of a project that is solving a critical challenge of humanity. We are a bit more organically. If you lose my connection or my screen, because I have notification that my connection is poor. So every month we focus on a subject, on a topic, and we launch a call for projects to our audience to also ask them to contribute to build this crowdsourced research about project innovating and providing solution on a certain topic or problematic. Since 2016, we mapped a wide variety of projects in all of these different topics: food, mobility, waste, water, climate, and they keep up some counting. And we have now more than 1,200 projects from 80 different countries, and we map them in 3 languages. So in English, Spanish, and Catalan. The 3 languages of Barcelona and London. When I say map them, means like physically put them in our map and write all the article about it. Beside the article mapping the project, we also interview what we call the future heroes, which are how we called, or language we invented within our media to call the people solving this problem, solving these problems with the people behind these projects that are like our pioneers in that. So we kind of celebrate these people and these problem solvers. Atlas of the Future is also a physical and online event. Once a year, we gather all these future heroes or these people behind the project in a big event in Barcelona at the Center for Contemporary Culture of Barcelona, in a 2-day event that is like a super bump of optimism and ideas. It's like 2 days with a lot of speakers, one after the other, in a short pitch, on which we really want to bring these people from all over the world to have a live interaction with one of our public, that is the one in Barcelona. This year we ran an online version of the event, and whereas the general event is dedicated to a variety of topics, like from ocean to food to climate change to activism to farming, innovation. So it's really broad, the program. we'll go again through it. This year, in the online version, we focus on the problem of the education, so the future of education, especially how it has been threatened and stressed with the pandemic ongoing. And the format was like one session, 1 hour session every week for 7 weeks. And it has been very interesting, and also we experiment with the different possibility of interaction with the public through an online event, where people are less shy to send a question, and so that it was possible to high-level people to talk about the topic of the future of education. And this year we're going to launch a print version of the Atlas, an online, printed magazine once a year. So it's going to be like the collection of the most inspiring projects that we've been doing through all over the year. And more than everything, Atlas of the Future is a community now of people. So that belongs to the Barcelona, London, and the international world that are committed and believe in this positive and optimistic future. So this is the public, the persona we have in mind when to whom we address our article. So is not. They're not people that come from the science or from the policymakers, even though we also have them among our public, but we direct to like this mother with his 2 kids. So someone that is honestly concerned about the future, but we still with the amount of optimism to make it better. It's a bit the scale of our reach. Just to point out that the last data, the 25% of our projects are actually being submitted by our audience through this monthly call for projects. Some of our of our community, which are part of our community, are also obviously our future heroes. So the people that carry our message around. And now let's talk also briefly about our editorial guidelines. So we have our golden rules, so to say, is to write original stories. So possibly not, possibly be not republished, but to spot the stories and write an original pieces about it. We always get in contact with the protagonist to understand the untold story. So this is a bit to make the process that Patricia was suggesting, no? So to understand the why behind the projects and the struggle that have been to, and to really make a story, to find the personal aspects behind a story. Well, or to find the story behind a project, so to say. We like to give space to diversity, so we both in all, what does it mean diversity? What country, topic, scale, gender, race. And we also like to highlight the small adventures as the big ones. So it's not just the biggest project with the biggest impact, but also small projects with a proportionate small impact. But that have been going through meaningful adventures, to say. And we like to give voice to our audience, because of course when someone from our audience is submitting a project, well, we editorially look at it with a sweeter eye to make it possible to include it in our platform. Then we have our project criteria. This is very important because it looks something simple, but it is actually very sharp. So all our projects have to be real, so not investigation, not ideas, not projects at a very, very early stage that still didn't demonstrate that are stable. All the projects has to be innovative, which means solve some kind of problems in a new way. So we like imaginative, creative projects. So all these emotional projects, but that have to still be innovative. The project has to be committed to a long-term vision. So it's not a project that is very limited in time, but we are interested in projects that will last in time. And we're interested in projects that are obviously having a lasting positive impact. About the impact, of course, we are interested in that the project in the fact that the project have a positive impact, but not specifically or necessarily we focus just on big impacts. As I said, we are also interested in small impacts as soon as or as long as the story is moving and strong. And then if you will have the opportunity to scroll a bit through the atlas, you will see also that we have a very specific editorial voice. So as said, if thinking that we are talking to this mother with the kids, no, is thinking that we are talking with these people, normal people that, yeah, they want to change the world, but within their reach, no. We like to speak human, in the sense that we do not speak things that people would not understand. So not too technical, not too scientifical, not too techy, but it's very important for us to speak a language that everybody understands. We always try to highlight a positive and optimistic perspective. So instead of, I mean, you can go down a very dramatic road when talking about the climate change. So we try to highlight the positive possible development of the projects. I mean, if there are criticism, of course, we spot them, but we try to put a clear focus on the optimistic and positiveness of the stories. And we believe in entertaining to educate. In this way to say that we try to be funny, we try to have an engaging and yeah, like very now voice and attitude to reach the people on a very friendly and close way. When we're interested, this is the kind of question we send out. It is interesting for you maybe to go through to understand what you're looking for in a project. So please explain your project, why it is important. You see the why, the first thing. What problem are you solving and what makes your project different? So here, why, so the relevance of the project and the innovation. So which problem are you solving and why it is you do it in an innovative way. Can you pinpoint what inspired you or the founders to create this project? So this question is looking for the story behind it, no? Because many projects were triggered or inspired by a personal experience, no? Something that someone suffered and was on their skin and was the trigger to step up and build this project for a better future. So this is, if we manage to find this trigger and these stories, we believe that is very likely to enter into a real connection with our audience. What's the impact of your project so far? What have been your greatest achievement and things you're proud of in 2020? And so we ask for the things they are proud of, no? Because we are always interested on this personal perspective. Also, yeah. Well, what's next? Tell me about your next steps and any long-term plan. So how we are checking here for the long-term span of the project. How can people get involved, help? this is because at the end of each article, we always include a call to action. So how our readers can actually contribute somehow or get involved in the project we are presenting. So this is to create this community and to also keep on fueling the activism that communication can trigger. Could the pandemic be an opportunity to improve our world? What seeds of possibility do you see? Of course, this question is to well, link any project or any article to the current conditions, no? Because it resonates with what people care and are concerned now about. But we always want to focus on actually which are the opportunities, so which are the positive aspects of a critical situation. Short answers are fine. Please feel free to be as informal and personal as possible in your response. It is great to hear your perspective and personality. So we also ask them to answer in a very normal way, because we always include quotes of when possible, when they answer in the articles from the project leader or the people who develop them. And so we also like that you can really hear their voice. So it's not, you can also see, try to make our audience feel how these people inventing this project felt. And here I put 3 quick examples that if we have time, we can quickly go through. Can we? Yeah. So three projects we presented. So you also can get more familiar with the platform. So, okay. So you see, this is like the header of a project. You can always search other projects per topic, per location, through the map, or see all the list of the projects. And this is a project that we published actually last week. It's called Drone Korea. That is this guy. You see, we put the focus on the person developing the project. So we have it in the header of the image. This guy developed a drone that is a do-it-yourself drone. So an open source drone that everybody can download and make, to drop seeds to reforest the Mediterranean. So areas that have suffered like burned forest, for example. So it's a project that we love because of its simplicity, no? And also because it is open source, so everybody can potentially build this drone and start reforesting Spain. You see, after the header, we have the article on one side and the data sheet on the other. So the data sheet is the project leader, where it is mapped, the tags related to this project. And in this case, this was a project that we developed within a collaboration with iWest de Barcelona. And so here is featured the sponsor for this project, and then a searcher for other projects. About the article, we start stating where it is from, a sentence that is kind of introducing the main idea of the projects. And then you see the article, we develop it in we always try to have a very strong start, like sowing 100 seeds per second using drone may seem stuff of science fiction, but is already possible thanks to Drone Korea, etc., etc., etc. We introduced the quote of the founders. Now, what is the most important thing a drone could carry? His answer was life. And what gives life? Seeds. You know, to explain how the project has been generated. Well, then you'll read it by yourself. You see, we like to have a lot of links, very nice pictures, and we end video when possible, and we add always with this call to action. We call it the Atlas action. So with things that our audience can do to get involved. And more pictures, comment, etc. We can go to another example. Yeah. you see, same organization of the content. And this project is part of a collection we call Culture Future, because it's project that through which the culture or the artistic idea behind is actually having an impact. So in this case is the story of a father. You see how we always like to tell the story of the people and see their face. Called Taufik Okoya. This girl was always playing with blonde. He's living in Lagos. No, notice that this girl was his daughter was playing with Barbies, like super thin and super blonde, which is not a role model for a girl from Nigeria, and so launched this project of making Barbies, of dolls that are actually following the physical standards of the girls in Africa. So different style, different body shape, so to launch this new reference for the girls in Africa. You see always we always pick nice pictures. Possible Atlas Action, well, in this case, by a Queen of Africa. Yeah. Or I think I selected a third project. See. Or this other project, the Flippy Floppy, is a boat that have been built in Kenya using completely plastic that has been collected from the coastal the beaches of Kenya. So this plastic has been collected, has been compressed into the structure of the boat, and the boat has been then how do you say, like covered with flip-flops that again collected from the beach. And this was a project that has been made with the local craftsmen, because they were the local craftsman was the expert in making this kind of traditional boat, and has been made with the local people living on these shores that have been collecting the plastic trash. And it has been made as a demonstration project in order to actually sail through the sea and the lake in Kenya to showcase that a solution is to the plastic problem is possible. And again, you can see, like with the author, the Atlas Action, and the quotes we like to introduce in our articles.
Thank you, Silvia.
Okay, so, and with this, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this gives us a very good insight into what, media platforms so specialized as you, with a clear geographic focus and topics that are really focusing on the positive impacts projects, what are you taking into account, and how they can, if many of the participants that are here today, they have their own innovative projects, they can actually apply and submit their stories and get featured, because sometimes we feel we think too much about the communication that we want to create, let's say, but not so much about the dissemination that we want to get out of that. So I think we need to put a lot of focus and efforts into disseminating all of the results and stories that are behind each of these projects. So I hope that this was inspiration.
Yes, so sign up to the newsletter, because every week we send out the stories we found, spot, and wrote about it. And if you have a project that accomplished with our 4 criteria, please submit it. There is a submission form. So as soon as we are gonna go through that topic, you are very likely to be showcased in our platform. Thank you.
Yes, what we will do is to follow up to all of the people who has registered to the event, and we will be sending you the presentation, and we will be publishing the recording of this training, so you can always refer to this, and also to featuring Silvia's presentation if she's willing to share it, and the details to subscribe to our networks, so you can keep up to date with our latest news, events, and campaigns. And of course, we are, from the REVOLE side of things, we are always happy to read and discover new innovative projects that we can also feature in our publications. So feel free to get in touch with us. We also have the kind of Mediterranean brands or initiative that is called Amwar, that it's called related to waves in Arabic. And I think this is also a good platform to disseminate your stories, especially if they are referred to water and energy. And always the green growth community is open to feature your projects related to the green growth and circular economy. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, as being part of the Circular Economy Stakeholders Platform, we can always create links, reinforce collaborations, and make the most out of these projects. So we are writing here in the chat our social media channels, our newsletters and websites, so you can all now go and explore a little bit more what we just briefly described. And yes, definitely we will send you the presentations. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I hope you learned something and it was insightful, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye to everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.